The communication array on Kepler Station buzzed with an incoming transmission that would change everything. Commander Zara Vex of the Terran Deep Space Communications Division nearly spilled her coffee as the priority alert flashed across her screen. The signal was unlike anything in their database, a complex mathematical pattern wrapped in what appeared to be a universal distress protocol. "Sarah, get over here," Zara called to her communications specialist. "I need you to run a full spectrum analysis on this transmission." Sarah Chen hurried over, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface as she began decoding the alien message. The mathematics were elegant, almost beautiful in their simplicity, but the emotional undertones were unmistakable. Pure terror. The message, once translated, painted a horrifying picture. The Ethereal Collective, a peaceful alliance of 7 different species, was under siege by something called the Void Swarm. Their worlds were falling one by one, their populations either consumed or converted into mindless drones. They had heard whispers of a species called humans who were known for their unusual approach to warfare and their ability to survive in the most hostile environments. "They're asking for military assistance," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Commander, they're offering to share their entire technological database in exchange for help. Their quantum computing alone is centuries ahead of ours." Zara leaned back in her chair, processing the implications. Humanity had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, and their first contact protocols were still being debated by politicians and scientists back on Earth. But this wasn't a diplomatic mission, this was a rescue operation. "Me a direct line to Admiral Harrison," Zara ordered, "and patch this transmission through to Earth Command. They need to see this immediately, within hours." The message had reached the highest levels of the Terran Defense Force. Admiral Patricia Harrison, a veteran of the Mars Rebellion and the architect of humanity's first interstellar military doctrine, studied the alien transmission with growing interest. The tactical data included in the message showed enemy movements, ship configurations, and battle strategies that seemed almost ritualistic in their predictability. "They fight like they're dancing," she muttered to her aide, Colonel Marcus Webb. "Look at these formations, perfect geometric patterns, synchronized movements. It's beautiful, but completely impractical against an adaptive enemy." The war room at Earth Command buzzed with activity as xenobiologists, military strategists, and diplomats worked around the clock to understand their potential new allies. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the lead xenobiologist, presented her findings to the assembled council. "The Ethereal Collective appears to be composed of species that evolved on garden worlds, planets with stable climates, abundant resources, and minimal natural predators. Their entire civilization is built around harmony, cooperation, and artistic expression. They've never encountered anything like the Void Swarm." General Thompson, head of Special Operations, studied the tactical reports. "The swarm adapts to their fighting patterns because those patterns never change. They're too civilized, too predictable. They need someone who fights dirty." Admiral Harrison smiled grimly. "Someone who evolved on a death world?" The decision was made within 48 hours. Operation Lifeline would deploy the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet under Admiral Harrison's command, consisting of 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and the experimental dreadnought Indomitable. But more importantly, it would carry the first Terran Marines, soldiers who had trained in the crushing gravity of Jupiter's moons, the toxic atmosphere of Venus, and the frozen wastelands of Pluto. As the fleet prepared for departure, Dr. Vasquez worked with the communications team to send a response to the Ethereal Collective. The message was simple: help is coming. Prepare for unconventional warfare. The response from the aliens was immediate and filled with hope. They transmitted coordinates to their capital system, Lumina Prime, and tactical data on swarm movements. What they didn't understand was that they were about to witness something their peaceful civilization had never imagined: the fury of a species that had clawed its way to the top of a planetary food chain through millennia of violence, adaptation, and pure stubborn refusal to die. Captain Maria Santos of the Indomitable reviewed the mission parameters as the fleet entered hyperspace. The journey to Lumina Prime would take 6 days, during which her crew would study everything they could about their new enemies. The Void Swarm, according to alien intelligence, was a hive mind entity that consumed organic matter and converted technology for its own use. They moved in vast, coordinated swarms and had never encountered significant resistance. "They're about to get an education," Captain Santos told her bridge crew as stars streaked past the view screen. "The ethereals fight like scholars, careful, precise, following rules. We fight like survivors." In the Marine bays, Sergeant Major Rodriguez briefed his soldiers on what they might face. These weren't ordinary troops, they were humans who had trained in environments that would kill most other species. They had fought in the methane storms of Titan, the crushing depths of Europa's oceans, and the radioactive wastelands left behind by the corporate wars. "Remember, Marines," Rodriguez growled, "we're not just representing humanity here. We're showing the galaxy what happens when you mess with our allies. These bugs think they understand warfare because they've been bullying peaceful civilizations. Time to show them what real warfare looks like." The Void Swarm had no concept of Deathworlders. In their millions of years of existence, they had encountered thousands of species, but all had followed predictable patterns of resistance. They would gather their fleets, fight according to established military doctrines, and eventually fall when those doctrines proved inadequate. But humans were different. They were a species that had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and their own attempts at self-destruction. They had turned their homeworld's hostility into strength, its dangers into training grounds. They didn't just adapt to harsh environments, they thrived in them. As the Terran fleet approached the edge of ethereal space, Admiral Harrison received one final transmission from the aliens. It was a simple message of gratitude, mixed with barely concealed desperation. Their outer colonies had fallen, their defensive fleets scattered. They were down to their last few systems. "Tell them we're not here to save them," Admiral Harrison told her communications officer. "Tell them we're here to teach them how to save themselves." The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of warfare, survival, and what it truly meant to be apex predators. Marcus spent the night in his workshop, surrounded by reference materials and improvised testing equipment. Lyreley had offered to return to her ship, but he had insisted she stay in the small apartment above the garage. She needed rest, and he worked better when he could focus completely on the problem at hand. The damaged crystals lay before him on his workbench, their fractured surfaces catching the light from his desk lamp. Through careful analysis, he had determined that they were made of a silicon-based compound, infused with trace elements he could not identify. The internal structure was incredibly complex, with microscopic channels and chambers that seemed to serve as pathways for energy flow. What fascinated Marcus most was how the crystals responded to different frequencies. When he exposed them to various electromagnetic fields, the intact portions would glow and resonate in patterns that suggested they were trying to communicate with each other. It was as if they were alive in some strange way, each one a note in a larger symphony. By dawn, Marcus had a theory. The crystals were not just focusing devices, but actual computing elements. They processed energy patterns the same way a computer processed data, making calculations and adjustments in real time to maintain the ship's power systems. The damage had not just broken hardware, it had lobotomized part of the ship's brain. When Lyreley came down to the workshop, she found Marcus hunched over a jury-rigged apparatus that looked like a cross between a microscope and a music synthesizer. Copper wires snaked between electronic components salvaged from a dozen different devices, all focused on a single crystal fragment. "You have been working all night," she observed, setting down a cup of something that smelled like tea but glowed faintly blue. "Could not sleep," Marcus admitted, accepting the drink gratefully. It tasted like mint and starlight if starlight had a flavor. "I think I understand what these crystals do, but replacing them is going to be tricky. The manufacturing process requires precision down to the molecular level." Lyreley's shoulders sagged. "Then it is impossible. My people's factories could grow new crystals, but that would take months even if I could contact them." "I did not say it was impossible," Marcus corrected with a tired grin. "I said it would be tricky. There is a difference." He led her to another workbench where an odd collection of materials waited. Quartz samples, metallic powders, rare earth elements, and several electronic components that had been modified beyond recognition. "The key is not to duplicate your technology exactly," Marcus explained. "That would be impossible with my resources. Instead, I need to create something that can perform the same function using different principles. Over the next several hours, Marcus demonstrated what human ingenuity could accomplish when properly motivated. Using a combination of synthetic diamond wafers and specially doped silicon chips, he began constructing hybrid devices that could interface with Lyra ship systems while operating on human engineering principles. The process was painstaking. Each component had to be precisely calibrated to match the frequency signatures of the remaining intact crystals. Marcus worked with tools that ranged from electron beam welders to simple files, shaping and adjusting each element until it sang in harmony with its neighbors. Lyra watched in growing amazement as the impossible became reality. Marcus was not just repairing her ship, he was teaching it to speak a new language. His hybrid crystals could not do everything the originals could, but they could serve as translators, allowing the advanced alien systems to work with human-built components. "Your people," she said during a brief break, "they think differently than mine do." Marcus looked up from the delicate calibration work he was performing. "How so?" "We are taught to perfect existing designs, to refine and optimize what has already been proven. But you see a problem and immediately begin thinking of entirely new approaches. Maybe that is because we have not been around long enough to get stuck in our ways," Marcus suggested. "Sometimes being primitive has its advantages." By afternoon, the first hybrid crystal was ready for testing. Marcus connected it to his improvised test rig and slowly brought it online. The device hummed to life, its artificial harmonics blending with the natural resonance of Lyra's original crystals. The patterns were different, but they were compatible. "It works," Lyra breathed, her violet eyes wide with disbelief. "It actually works." "1 down, 7 to go," Marcus said, but his satisfaction was evident. "Now that I know the process works, the rest should go faster." As he began work on the second crystal, Lyra found herself studying this human with new eyes. Her people had dismissed humanity as a primitive species not worth serious consideration. They were wrong. Perhaps not about human technology, which was indeed crude by galactic standards, but about human potential. Marcus worked with a combination of scientific precision and artistic intuition that she had never seen before. He approached each problem as if it were a puzzle to be solved rather than an obstacle to be overcome. When one approach failed, he simply tried another, treating each failure as valuable information rather than cause for discouragement. "Marcus," she said quietly, "what will you ask for in return? When the repairs are complete, what payment will you require?" He paused in his work, considering the question. "I had not really thought about it. Keeping your ship flying seems like payment enough. That cannot be true. You have already spent considerable time and materials on this project." Marcus shrugged. "I like fixing things, and this is the most interesting challenge I have ever encountered. Besides, where would you go to get spare parts for something like this? I might be your only option." Lyra felt something stir in her chest that her translator could not quantify. This human was not just helping her from professional obligation or expectation of reward. He was doing it because it was the right thing to do, because she needed help and he was capable of providing it. The concept was not unknown among her people, but it was rare enough to be noteworthy. Most interactions in galactic society were based on calculated exchanges of value. Pure altruism was considered an inefficient emotional response, something to be evolved beyond rather than cultivated. Yet watching Marcus work, seeing the care and attention he devoted to her problem, Lyra began to wonder if her people had evolved beyond something valuable rather than something primitive. There was a purity to human motivation that her more advanced civilization seemed to have lost somewhere along the way. As the second crystal neared completion, she made a decision that would have surprised her instructors back home. Whatever payment Marcus ultimately requested, she would find a way to provide it. But more than that, she would make sure her people learned about what humans were truly capable of when given the chance to prove themselves. The next morning, Lyra did not prepare for departure as Marcus had expected. Instead, she spent hours in communication with someone through her ship's quantum communication array. The conversations were in her native language, musical and complex, but Marcus could hear the intensity even without understanding the words. "Problems with your people?" he asked when she finally emerged from the ship, looking thoughtful and slightly nervous. "Not problems exactly," Lyra replied. "More like negotiations. I have been speaking with the Etherian Science Collective about your work." Marcus felt a chill of concern. I hope I have not gotten you in trouble. I know my repairs are not standard procedure. Quite the opposite, Lyrelei assured him. They are fascinated. The improvements you made to my ship's systems have been recorded and analyzed. The efficiency gains alone represent advances my people have been trying to achieve for centuries. She paused, choosing her words carefully. They want to meet you. The implications of that statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. First contact between humanity and an advanced alien civilization had always been a subject of speculation and science fiction. He had never imagined it might happen in his garage over the repair of a broken ship. Meet me? He managed. Like officially? As in diplomatic contact? More than that, Lyrelei said, her excitement growing. They want to offer you something unprecedented. A position with the Science Collective, access to our libraries, our laboratories, our accumulated knowledge. The chance to work on problems that span multiple star systems. Marcus sat down heavily on his workbench. The offer was beyond anything he could have imagined, but it was also terrifying. Leave Earth? Leave everything he knew to work with aliens whose technology was so advanced it might as well be magic? I would not be pressuring you, Lyrelei continued, but this opportunity may never come again. My people are cautious about forming relationships with younger species. The fact that they are willing to make this offer speaks to how impressed they are with your abilities. What would I actually be doing? Marcus asked. I mean, if your technology is thousands of years ahead of ours, what could I possibly contribute? Lyrelei smiled. Exactly what you did for my ship. You see solutions that we cannot see because you are not limited by our assumptions about how things should work. You approach problems with fresh eyes and unlimited creativity. She activated a holographic display that showed star charts and technical diagrams. There are projects across our space that have been stalled for decades. Engineering challenges that our best minds cannot solve because they are trapped by conventional thinking. You could be the key to breakthrough discoveries. The scope was staggering. Terraforming dead worlds, building faster-than-light communication networks, developing new forms of energy generation, projects that could benefit not just the Etherian civilization, but countless other species throughout the galaxy. But I am just one person, Marcus protested, and I would be working completely outside my knowledge base. You would not be alone, Lyrelei assured him. I have requested to be your liaison and partner. Together, we could accomplish things that neither of our species could achieve separately. Marcus looked at his garage, his tools, his simple life fixing broken machines for local spacers. It was satisfying work, but it was also limited. How many ships could he repair? How many small problems could he solve? The offer Lyrelei described would let him tackle challenges that could change the course of entire civilizations. There is one condition, Lyrelei added quietly. This cannot be a human colonial expansion disguised as scientific cooperation. You would be coming as an individual, not as a representative of your species. Earth's governments would not be informed until much later, if at all. That gave Marcus pause. Abandoning his home world without official approval felt like betrayal, even if the potential benefits were enormous. But then he considered the alternative. If Earth's governments became involved, the scientific opportunity would almost certainly be lost in political maneuvering and military posturing. How long do I have to decide? He asked. My ship is scheduled to depart in 3 days, Lyrelei replied. The collective wants an answer before then. Marcus spent the next day walking through New Denver, seeing his home city with new eyes. The bustling spaceport, the mix of human and alien architecture, the steady stream of traders and travelers from across known space. Humanity was already part of a larger galactic community, but only as junior participants. This could be his chance to change that. He visited his few close friends, though he could not tell them what he was really considering. He reviewed his finances, his commitments, his reasons for staying versus his reasons for leaving. The decision should have been obvious, but it felt like stepping off a cliff into unknown darkness. On the second day, Lyrelei found him in his workshop, staring at the tools that had been his companions for most of his adult life. Regrets? She asked gently. Questions, Marcus replied. What if I am not as clever as you think I am? What if my solutions only worked because your ship was willing to adapt? What if I get out there and discover I am just another primitive human after all? Lyrelei picked up one of his modified tools, a simple wrench that he had adapted with electronic sensors and micro-adjustments. This tool represents everything that makes humans special, she said. You took something basic and made it better, not by replacing it with advanced technology, but by understanding its purpose and enhancing its capabilities. She set the tool down carefully. That is what you did for my ship. That is what you could do for problems throughout the galaxy. The question is not whether you are capable. The question is whether you are brave enough to try. That evening, Marcus made his decision. He spent the night writing letters to be delivered after his departure, explaining his choice to the few people who would wonder where he had gone. He packed a small bag with personal items and tools he could not bear to leave behind. Most importantly, he spent time with his garage, saying goodbye to the place that had been his home and workshop for so many years. When dawn came, he was ready. "I have one condition of my own," he told Lyreley as they prepared for departure. "When we discover something important, when we solve one of those impossible problems, I want the knowledge shared. Not just with your people, but with everyone who can benefit from it. Human, Etherian, or any other species we encounter." Lyreley smiled. "I think that can be arranged. In fact, I think the collective will appreciate that attitude." As Marcus boarded the ship that had brought them together, he felt the artificial intelligence welcome him with warm harmonics. The vessel was eager to explore again, and apparently happy to have him along for the journey. The ship lifted off smoothly, Earth shrinking below them as they climbed toward the stars. Marcus watched his homeworld disappear, knowing he might never see it again. But instead of sadness, he felt anticipation. Somewhere out there were problems waiting to be solved, challenges that would test everything. He thought he knew about engineering and creativity, and beside him was a partner who understood both the value of his human perspective and the magnitude of what they might accomplish together. The next morning, Lyreley did not prepare for departure as Marcus had expected. Instead, she spent hours in communication with someone through her ship's quantum communication array. The conversations were in her native language, musical and complex, but Marcus could hear the intensity even without understanding the words. "Problems with your people?" he asked when she finally emerged from the ship, looking thoughtful and slightly nervous. "Not problems exactly," Lyreley replied. "More like negotiations. I have been speaking with the Etherian Science Collective about your work." Marcus felt a chill of concern. "I hope I have not gotten you in trouble. I know my repairs are not standard procedure." "Quite the opposite," Lyreley assured him. "They are fascinated. The improvements you made to my ship's systems have been recorded and analyzed. The efficiency gains alone represent advances my people have been trying to achieve for centuries." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "They want to meet you." The implications of that statement hit Marcus like a physical blow. First contact between humanity and an advanced alien civilization had always been a subject of speculation and science fiction. He had never imagined it might happen in his garage over the repair of a broken ship. "Meet me?" he managed. "Like officially? As in diplomatic contact?" "More than that," Lyreley said, her excitement growing. "They want to offer you something unprecedented. A position with the Science Collective, access to our libraries, our laboratories, our accumulated knowledge. The chance to work on problems that span multiple star systems." Marcus sat down heavily on his workbench. The offer was beyond anything he could have imagined, but it was also terrifying. Leave Earth? Leave everything he knew to work with aliens whose technology was so advanced it might as well be magic? "I would not be pressuring you," Lyreley continued, "but this opportunity may never come again. My people are cautious about forming relationships with younger species. The fact that they are willing to make this offer speaks to how impressed they are with your abilities." "What would I actually be doing?" Marcus asked. "I mean, if your technology is thousands of years ahead of ours, what could I possibly contribute?" Lyreley smiled. "Exactly what you did for my ship. You see solutions that we cannot see because you are not limited by our assumptions about how things should work. You approach problems with fresh eyes and unlimited creativity." She activated a holographic display that showed star charts and technical diagrams. "There are projects across our space that have been stalled for decades. Engineering challenges that our best minds cannot solve because they are trapped by conventional thinking. You could be the key to breakthrough discoveries." The scope was staggering. Terraforming dead worlds, building faster-than-light communication networks, developing new forms of energy generation, projects that could benefit not just the Etherian civilization, but countless other species throughout the galaxy. "But I am just one person," Marcus protested. And I would be working completely outside my knowledge base. You would not be alone, Lyreley assured him. I have requested to be your liaison and partner. Together, we could accomplish things that neither of our species could achieve separately. Marcus looked at his garage, his tools, his simple life fixing broken machines for local spacers. It was satisfying work, but it was also limited. How many ships could he repair? How many small problems could he solve? The offer Lyreley described would let him tackle challenges that could change the course of entire civilizations. There is one condition, Lyreley added quietly. This cannot be a human colonial expansion disguised as scientific cooperation. You would be coming as an individual, not as a representative of your species. Earth's governments would not be informed until much later, if at all. That gave Marcus pause. Abandoning his home world without official approval felt like betrayal, even if the potential benefits were enormous. But then he considered the alternative. If Earth's governments became involved, the scientific opportunity would almost certainly be lost in political maneuvering and military posturing. How long do I have to decide? He asked. My ship is scheduled to depart in 3 days, Lyreley replied. The collective wants an answer before then. Marcus spent the next day walking through New Denver, seeing his home city with new eyes. The bustling spaceport, the mix of human and alien architecture, the steady stream of traders and travelers from across known space. Humanity was already part of a larger galactic community, but only as junior participants. This could be his chance to change that. He visited his few close friends, though he could not tell them what he was really considering. He reviewed his finances, his commitments, his reasons for staying versus his reasons for leaving. The decision should have been obvious, but it felt like stepping off a cliff into unknown darkness. On the second day, Lyreley found him in his workshop, staring at the tools that had been his companions for most of his adult life. Regrets? She asked gently. Questions, Marcus replied. What if I am not as clever as you think I am? What if my solutions only worked because your ship was willing to adapt? What if I get out there and discover I am just another primitive human after all? Lyreley picked up one of his modified tools, a simple wrench that he had adapted with electronic sensors and micro-adjustments. This tool represents everything that makes humans special, she said. You took something basic and made it better, not by replacing it with advanced technology, but by understanding its purpose and enhancing its capabilities. She set the tool down carefully. That is what you did for my ship. That is what you could do for problems throughout the galaxy. The question is not whether you are capable. The question is whether you are brave enough to try. That evening, Marcus made his decision. He spent the night writing letters to be delivered after his departure, explaining his choice to the few people who would wonder where he had gone. He packed a small bag with personal items and tools he could not bear to leave behind. Most importantly, he spent time with his garage, saying goodbye to the place that had been his home and workshop for so many years. When dawn came, he was ready. I have one condition of my own, he told Lyreley as they prepared for departure. When we discover something important, when we solve one of those impossible problems, I want the knowledge shared. Not just with your people, but with everyone who can benefit from it. Human, Etherian, or any other species we encounter. Lyreley smiled. I think that can be arranged. In fact, I think the collective will appreciate that attitude. As Marcus boarded the ship that had brought them together, he felt the artificial intelligence welcome him with warm harmonics. The vessel was eager to explore again, and apparently happy to have him along for the journey. The ship lifted off smoothly, Earth shrinking below them as they climbed toward the stars. Marcus watched his homeworld disappear, knowing he might never see it again. But instead of sadness, he felt anticipation. Somewhere out there were problems waiting to be solved, challenges that would test everything. He thought he knew about engineering and creativity, and beside him was a partner who understood both the value of his human perspective and the magnitude of what they might accomplish together. The journey to Etherian space took 2 weeks, during which Marcus learned more about advanced physics than he had thought possible. Lyreley smiled, her violet eyes reflecting the soft glow of their laboratory displays. Perhaps the ship breakdown was not as accidental as it seemed. The universe has a way of bringing together those who need each other. Marcus looked at her curiously. Are you saying you think fate brought us together? I am saying that sometimes the most important discoveries come from unexpected encounters, she replied. Your repair of my ship was just the beginning. What we are accomplishing together here will change how both our species approach engineering challenges. As if to emphasize her point, a communication alert chimed through the laboratory. Elder Zephiria's image appeared in the holographic display, her expression showing unusual excitement. Marcus Lyrili, you need to see this immediately. The preliminary results from the solar collection project have exceeded all projections. 3 different worlds have already requested implementation of your hybrid power distribution system. Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction. The transportation approach is working then? Better than working. It is revolutionizing our entire approach to interstellar resource management. But that is not why I am contacting you. Elder Zephyria paused, choosing her words carefully. The Galactic Council has taken notice of your work. They want to meet with you. The implications of that statement settled over Marcus like a cold wave. The Galactic Council represented dozens of advanced civilizations, species that had been traveling between stars when humans were still learning to make fire. If they were interested in his work, it meant his human perspective had implications far beyond just Etherian science. What kind of meeting? Lyrili asked, her voice carefully neutral. The kind that could reshape how the galaxy approaches technological development, Elder Zephyria replied. Marcus Chen, you may have started something much larger than you realized. He proved to be an excellent teacher, patient with his questions and skilled at explaining complex concepts in terms he could understand. More importantly, she seemed genuinely interested in his perspectives on the technology they discussed. Your people think in terms of systems and interactions, Marcus observed as they studied the ship's navigation array. Everything is connected to everything else. Humans tend to break problems down into smaller pieces that we can handle individually. Both approaches have merit, Lyrili replied. Our holistic thinking allows us to create elegant, integrated solutions. But sometimes we become trapped by the complexity of our own systems. Your analytical approach might help us see past that. The ship itself became Marcus's first real laboratory. With Lyrili's permission, he began making small improvements to various systems, testing his theories about human-Etherian hybrid technology. Each success built his confidence and refined his understanding of how the 2 engineering philosophies could complement each other. When they finally arrived at the Etherian homeworld, Marcus was struck speechless by his first view of an advanced alien civilization. The planet was a work of art on a planetary scale, with cities that flowed like living things across landscapes that had been carefully shaped to support both natural ecosystems and technological infrastructure. It is beautiful, he managed as they descended toward the capital. It has taken us 50,000 years to achieve this harmony, Lyrili said proudly. Every structure, every system has been optimized for efficiency and integration with the natural world. The spaceport was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Ships of dozens of different designs moved through 3-dimensional traffic patterns, orchestrated by invisible traffic control systems. The Etherian vessels dominated, their organic curves and shimmering hulls making them look more like sea creatures than machines. But Marcus also spotted ships from other species, confirming that the Etherians were part of a larger galactic community. Nervous? Lyrili asked as they prepared to disembark. Terrified, Marcus admitted, but also excited. This is the adventure of several lifetimes. The greeting committee was smaller than Marcus had expected. 3 Etherians waited at the airlock, their clothing marking them as high-ranking scientists or officials. The leader was elderly even by Etherian standards, her luminescent skin showing the deeper blue tones that came with age. I am Elder Zephyria, she said through a translation device similar to Lyrili's. Welcome to Etheria, Marcus Chen. Your reputation precedes you. Marcus felt a moment of panic. I hope the reputation is not too inflated. I am just a mechanic who likes solving puzzles. Perhaps, Elder Zephyria replied with what might have been a smile. But you are a mechanic who improved technology that we have considered perfected for millennia. That suggests abilities that extend far beyond simple mechanical repair. The tour that followed was overwhelming. Marcus was shown laboratories where Etherian scientists worked on projects that challenged his understanding of what was possible. Rooms where matter was manipulated at the quantum level, workshops where new life forms were designed and tested, research facilities that spanned multiple dimensions. This is where you will be working, Elder Zephyria explained as they entered a laboratory that seemed to stretch beyond the horizon. We have identified 12 critical projects that have been stalled for years. Each represents a fundamental challenge that our conventional approaches cannot solve. The problems were indeed staggering. A terraforming project on a world where the atmospheric chemistry resisted all attempts at modification. A communication system that needed to function across galactic distances without the normal delays of faster-than-light transmission. An energy storage system that could power planetary defense grids for centuries without maintenance. Where do I start? Marcus asked, feeling somewhat overwhelmed by the scope. Wherever you wish, Elder Zephyria replied. Lyrelai will assist you and you will have access to whatever resources you require. The only constraint is time. Several of these projects are urgently needed by worlds facing environmental or security crises. Marcus walked among the displays, studying each problem with the same methodical approach he had used on countless broken machines. The technologies were advanced beyond his comprehension, but the underlying engineering challenges were familiar. Power distribution, system integration, efficiency optimization, resource management. This one, he said finally, stopping before a display showing a massive orbital installation. What is this? A solar collection array designed to provide power for an entire star system, Lyrelai explained. But the energy transmission system loses too much power over interplanetary distances. The losses make the entire project economically unfeasible. Marcus studied the technical specifications, noting the elegant but complex energy routing systems. You are trying to send the power directly from the collectors to the users? Of course, that is the most efficient approach, but not necessarily the most practical one, Marcus mused. What if instead of trying to send power across space, you sent the raw materials for local power generation? The concept was simple but revolutionary. Instead of transmitting energy, the solar collectors would use that energy to create antimatter or other high-density fuel sources. Ships would transport these materials to where they were needed, where local generators would convert them back to usable power. The transmission losses become transportation costs, Marcus explained. And you can optimize the transportation routes for efficiency and reliability. Elder Zephiria's expression shifted to one of intense interest. The logistical challenges would be significant, but yes, this could work. The economics alone would make dozens of marginal worlds viable for colonization. Over the following days, Marcus dove into the details of the solar collection project. Working with a team of Etherian engineers, he developed hybrid systems that combined human practical thinking with Etherian advanced technology. The solutions were not always elegant by Etherian standards, but they worked. You think like an engineer rather than a scientist, one of his Etherian colleagues observed. You are more interested in what works than in what is theoretically optimal. Sometimes the practical solution is better than the perfect one, Marcus replied, especially if the perfect solution is too complex to implement reliably. As word of his successes spread, Marcus found himself in increasing demand. Scientists from across Etherian space requested consultations on their stalled projects. Each problem required a different approach, but the pattern was always similar. The Etherians had developed solutions that were technically brilliant, but practically challenging. Marcus provided alternatives that were simpler, more robust, and easier to maintain. But perhaps the most surprising development was his growing partnership with Lyrelai. What had begun as a translator relationship evolved into true scientific collaboration. She provided the theoretical knowledge and cultural context he needed, while he offered the fresh perspective and practical insights that helped her see past conventional limitations. We make a good team, she said one evening as they reviewed their latest breakthrough, a modified faster-than-light communication system that could function reliably across galactic distances. We do, Marcus agreed. I never expected to find a ale. The Galactic Council convened on a massive space station that orbited a neutron star, its exotic location chosen to demonstrate the technological mastery of the participating civilizations. Marcus had never imagined such a structure could exist, an artificial world larger than most planets, powered by the intense gravitational fields and magnetic storms of one of the universe's most dangerous stellar objects. Try not to be intimidated, Lyrelai advised as their ship approached the docking bay. Remember, they invited you here because they need what you can offer. Marcus watched through the viewport as ships from dozens of different species converged on the station. Some were sleek and mechanical like human vessels. Others were clearly grown rather than built, organic curves and living hulls that pulsed with their own internal rhythms. A few defied easy categorization, appearing to be made of crystallized light or folded space itself. Any advice on protocol? Marcus asked, adjusting the formal clothing that Elder Zephyria had provided for the occasion. Be yourself, Lyrelai replied. Your value to them is precisely that you think differently from everyone else in that chamber. If you try to conform to their expectations, you will lose what makes you special. The council chamber was a sphere nearly a kilometer in diameter, with seating arranged in concentric layers that allowed representatives from radically different species to participate comfortably. Some breathed the same atmosphere as humans and Etherians. Others existed in specialized environmental bubbles or appeared only as energy patterns projected into the space. Marcus found himself seated in the center of the chamber, beside Lyrelai and Elder Zephyria. The positioning was clearly significant. He was being presented not as a junior participant, but as the focus of the entire gathering. Marcus Chen of Earth, the council speaker began, its words transmitted directly into his mind through technology he could not begin to understand. You stand before representatives of 47 civilizations, some of which have existed since before your star was born. We have gathered to discuss the implications of your recent work. The speaker was clearly artificial, a collective intelligence that served the council rather than representing any single species. Its voice carried harmonics that suggested vast computational power and accumulated wisdom spanning geological ages. Your hybrid engineering approaches have solved problems that have challenged our combined sciences for centuries, the speaker continued. But more significantly, your methods suggest possibilities we had not considered. Tell us, how do you approach a problem that conventional wisdom says cannot be solved? Marcus took a deep breath, aware that his answer might influence the future relationship between humanity and the galactic community. I start by questioning the assumptions, he said. Most impossible problems are only impossible if you accept certain limitations as absolute. If you can identify which limitations are real and which are just accepted wisdom, you can often find alternative approaches. A ripple of interest passed through the chamber. Several representatives leaned forward, their attention focused intently on Marcus. Give us an example, requested a delegate whose crystalline form sparkled with internal light. Marcus gestured to the holographic displays that surrounded them. The solar collection project that we just completed. Everyone assumed that energy transmission was the only viable approach because that was the most efficient method according to conventional analysis. But efficiency is only one factor. When you include reliability, maintenance costs, and implementation complexity, transportation of energy storage materials becomes not just viable, but superior. You think in terms of total system optimization rather than component optimization, observed another delegate, this one appearing as a cloud of luminescent gas, exactly. And I think that is where human engineering differs from most advanced civilizations. We have not had time to develop perfect components, so we focus on making imperfect components work well together. The speaker's harmonic patterns shifted to something that might have been approval. This perspective has implications beyond engineering. Many of our civilizations have reached plateaus in their development because we have optimized individual aspects of our societies rather than considering the interactions between them. Elder Zephyria rose to address the council. The Etherian Science Collective proposes the establishment of a new research initiative. We would invite young civilizations to participate in solving challenges that have stymied our conventional approaches. Marcus Chen would serve as the first human liaison, working with selected individuals from other developing species. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. The scope of what was being proposed was staggering. Not just human integration into galactic science, but a fundamental change in how the galaxy approached technological development. There would be risks, warned a delegate whose mechanical form suggested an artificial intelligence civilization. Young species often lack the wisdom to understand the consequences of their innovations. But they also lack the preconceptions that limit our thinking, countered another representative. The human success with our stalled projects suggests that fresh perspectives are more valuable than we have previously recognized. The debate that followed lasted hours, conducted in languages and communication methods that spanned the spectrum of possible consciousness. Marcus found himself answering questions about human culture, technology, and philosophy. Some delegates were clearly skeptical of allowing primitive species access to advanced knowledge. Others argued passionately for the potential benefits. Finally, the speaker called for a formal decision. The proposal before us is unprecedented. Never before has the Council authorized such extensive cooperation with pre-spaceflight civilizations. But the evidence suggests that innovation requires diversity of thought, and diversity requires inclusion of different perspectives. The voting process was complex, involving not just yes or no decisions but elaborate negotiations about implementation details, safeguards, and oversight procedures. When it was complete, Marcus found himself staring at a display showing the results. Approved by significant majority, the speaker announced. The Galactic Innovation Initiative will be established, with Marcus Chen as the first director of emerging perspectives. Funding and resources will be provided by contributing civilizations, with oversight by a joint committee representing both advanced and developing species. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. What had started as a simple ship repair had become a galaxy-changing initiative that would bring together civilizations separated by millions of years of evolution. "Congratulations," Lyreley whispered beside him. "You have just changed the course of galactic history." As the council session concluded and delegates began departing for their respective worlds, Marcus found himself surrounded by representatives eager to discuss potential projects and collaborations. The problems they described spanned every field of science and engineering he could imagine, and many he could not. But perhaps most importantly, several delegates mentioned that they would be returning to their homeworlds to identify promising individuals from their own younger species. The initiative would not be limited to humans. It would include any civilization that could offer fresh perspectives on old problems. "What have I gotten myself into?" Marcus asked Lyreley as they made their way back to their ship. "Something wonderful," she replied, "and something that was long overdue. The galaxy has been stagnating because everyone was thinking the same way. You have given us permission to think differently again." As their ship departed the council station, Marcus watched the massive structure recede into the distance. Somewhere in that artificial world, plans were being made that would reshape how dozens of civilizations approached the challenges facing them. And at the center of it all was a simple idea: that sometimes the best solutions come from those who do not know what is supposed to be impossible. The journey back to Etheria gave Marcus time to plan his next steps. He would need to establish research facilities, recruit staff from multiple species, and develop protocols for managing projects that spanned vastly different technological levels. Most importantly, he would need to remember that his value lay not in becoming like the advanced civilizations, but in remaining distinctly human. "Ready for the next impossible problem?" Lyreley asked as Etheria appeared in their forward displays. Marcus smiled, thinking of all the challenges waiting for them. "Bring it on. After all, impossible is just another word for interesting." 5 years after the Galactic Council meeting, Marcus stood in the observation deck of Innovation Station Alpha, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. The station had grown from a small research facility into a sprawling complex that rivaled the Council's own headquarters. Representatives from over 60 species worked together in its laboratories, tackling problems that had seemed unsolvable just years before. "The quantum agriculture team just achieved their breakthrough," Lyreley reported, joining him at the viewport. Her role had evolved from translator to co-director, managing the complex logistics of coordinating research across dozens of different technological paradigms. "They have successfully created soil that can support Earth-based crops on worlds with completely alien biochemistry." Marcus nodded, watching a sleek vessel dock at one of the station's many bays. "Let me guess. They stopped trying to change the alien soil and instead developed hybrid plants that could bridge the gap between Earth and alien biochemistry." "Exactly. The Zephyrian researcher said it was the most obvious solution once she stopped thinking about it as a chemistry problem and started thinking about it as a translation problem. It was a pattern Marcus had seen repeated countless times. When researchers from advanced civilizations worked alongside individuals from younger species, solutions emerged that neither group could have developed alone. The advanced civilizations provided sophisticated tools and deep theoretical knowledge. The younger species provided fresh perspectives and willingness to challenge fundamental assumptions. "Status report from the other projects?" Marcus asked, pulling up the station's main display. The stellar engineering team has figured out how to stabilize dying stars using controlled gravitational manipulation. The Consciousness Transfer Project has developed a method for backing up and restoring artificial intelligences without losing personality traits. And the terraforming group has reduced the time required to make a dead world habitable from centuries to decades. Each breakthrough represented not just scientific advancement, but proof that the innovation initiative was working. Problems that had stymied galactic civilization for millennia were falling to the combined efforts of diverse research teams. "Any word from Earth?" Marcus asked, though he tried not to sound too eager. Lyreley smiled. "The diplomatic contact team reports that Earth's governments are finally ready for formal first contact. Apparently, the economic benefits from our technology transfers have convinced them that cooperation is more valuable than independence." Marcus felt a complex mix of emotions. Earth had changed dramatically since his departure. Fusion power plants based on Etherian designs now provided clean energy to entire continents. Medical advances developed on Innovation Station had eliminated most genetic diseases and extended human lifespans. Transportation systems inspired by galactic technology had made interplanetary travel routine within the solar system, but perhaps more importantly, human engineers and scientists had begun joining the initiative. Marcus was no longer the only human voice in galactic research. Dozens of his fellow humans now worked throughout the station, bringing their unique perspectives to bear on challenges across the galaxy. "The delegation from Earth arrives tomorrow," Lyreley continued. "They want to tour the facility and discuss humanity's formal entry into galactic civilization." "Are you nervous?" Marcus asked. "Me? I'm not the one who started a revolution by fixing a broken ship," Lyreley replied with amusement. "But yes, I am nervous. This meeting will determine whether humans join the galactic community as equals or as junior partners." Marcus understood her concern. The traditional path for new civilizations involved centuries of gradual integration, starting with limited trade agreements and slowly building toward full membership in galactic institutions. Humanity was being offered a dramatically accelerated timeline based entirely on their proven contributions to galactic science. "They deserve equal partnership," Marcus said firmly. "Human ingenuity has solved more stalled problems in 5 years than most civilizations solve in centuries. We have earned our place at the table." The next day, Marcus found himself greeting a delegation of Earth's most senior diplomats and scientists. Leading them was Dr. Sarah Chen, the director of Earth's newly established Office of Galactic Affairs, and Marcus's younger sister. "Hello, brother," Sarah said, embracing him warmly. "You have been busy since you disappeared from your garage." "I left a note," Marcus protested, falling back into the easy banter that had characterized their relationship since childhood. "A note that said you were going to work on some interesting engineering problems. You did not mention that you were going to revolutionize galactic civilization." The tour that followed showcased 5 years of unprecedented scientific achievement. The Earth delegation observed teams of researchers from dozens of species working together on projects that ranged from faster-than-light communication to artificial gravity generation. Each laboratory represented collaboration between civilizations that had previously had little contact with each other. "This is remarkable," Dr. Elizabeth Hawking, Earth's chief science advisor, observed as they watched a team of humans and crystalline beings develop new materials at the molecular level. "You have created something that transcends individual species' capabilities." "That was always the goal," Marcus replied. "No single civilization, no matter how advanced, has all the answers. But when you combine different perspectives and approaches, solutions become possible that none of us could achieve alone." The formal negotiations took place in the station's main conference chamber, with representatives from Earth, the Etherian Science Collective, and several key galactic civilizations. The discussions were complex, covering everything from technology sharing agreements to cultural exchange programs. "Earth requests full membership in the Galactic Innovation Initiative," Sarah announced during the formal presentation. "We offer not just the services of our scientists and engineers, but access to our educational institutions and research facilities. Humanity wants to be a contributing partner, not just a beneficiary." Elder Zephyria, now serving as the Etherian representative to the initiative, responded positively. "The collective supports this proposal. Human contributions have already proven invaluable. Formalizing the partnership will benefit all participants." The vote was unanimous. Earth would become the first civilization to achieve full galactic partnership status in less than a century after first contact. The precedent would reshape how the galaxy approached relationships with developing civilizations. As the celebration continued around them, Marcus found himself standing with Lyrelei on the observation deck where they had talked so many times before. "So," Lyrelei said, "what is next for the human who changed the galaxy by fixing my ship?" Marcus smiled, watching Earth's delegation mingle with representatives from dozens of alien civilizations. "I think we keep doing what we have been doing, finding impossible problems and solving them together." "Together," Lyrelei agreed. "I like the sound of that." In the distance, a new ship was approaching the station. Its design was unfamiliar, suggesting it came from a civilization that had not yet made contact with the galactic community. The ship's communications array was broadcasting a distress signal. "Looks like another breakdown," Marcus observed. "Another opportunity," Lyrelei corrected. "Should we go see what needs fixing?" Marcus grinned, already heading toward the docking bay. "Why not? After all, you never know where a simple repair job might lead." As they hurried to meet the newest arrival, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him here. What had started as a routine maintenance job on an alien ship had become a galaxy-spanning initiative that brought together civilizations across the stars. The reward for his simple act of helping someone in need had been beyond anything he could have imagined. But perhaps the most important reward was not the recognition or the advanced technology or even the opportunity to solve impossible problems. The most important reward was the partnership he had found with Lyrelei, the friendship with beings from across the galaxy, and the knowledge that sometimes the smallest act of kindness could change everything. Behind them, Innovation Station Alpha hummed with the combined efforts of dozens of species working together toward a better future. And ahead of them, a new ship waited with new problems to solve and new opportunities to discover what was possible when different worlds worked together. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but Marcus Chen, former human mechanic turned director of emerging perspectives, was exactly where he belonged, at the intersection of the impossible and the inevitable, surrounded by friends who had become family, ready to tackle whatever came next.